I think we're about to see David Moyes' masterpiece. Now, before you all start laughing, right, because I know you're laughing, throwing rotten vegetables at your phone, don't do that. They're expensive. At me, you're throwing them at me, not at your phone. Let me just explain myself. When I say David Moyes' masterpiece, put aside, if you will, that you might like or not like what David Moyes is trying to do. You have to put aside your preferences for his type of football. I'm very much talking about a masterpiece in David Moyes' eyes. I think what you're about to see is the realisation of David Moyes' idea of the most efficient football team built in his own image, if you know what I mean. What does that look like? I think it's there's a new phrase that's sort of come into it in recent years. Low block. He basically sitting back and blocking, counter-attacking, strong on set pieces with a load of really big players in there. I think that's what we're about to see. And I don't think he was ever fully backed to the maximum at either Everton or Manchester United. Forget about all the other stuff, because if he didn't have that financial backing at Everton, Man United, it's pointless talking about Real Sociedad or talking about Sunderland or anything else. I think he might have got close at Everton with Fellaini, players like that, with Cahill, who was a really good player who totally fitted his system. Lescott he had in there. When he bought Leighton Baines was a really big part of what Moyes was trying to do, just for the frequency and the accuracy of Baines's crossing. The irony is the one player that can most deliver a ball that's most like Baines is Cresswell. Cresswell looks like he's probably on his way out, but I don't think Cresswell's got the energy to do what David Moyes wants him to do time and time again. And I don't know, I've always been a little bit concerned about Cresswell since it was pointed out to me by Gio that he actually puts his foot on the ball and rolls the ball under his foot before he crosses it. He basically takes 3 touches before he crosses. So I think that maybe just hinders just a little bit what David Moyes sort of wants to do. So I think he got close at Everton, but he never really had the financial backing to see it to its fullest conclusion. Make no mistake about it, David Moyes has never had financial backing like he's got at West Ham. I don't even just mean this season. I mean in the last 3 seasons. If I were to tell you now that David Moyes has already spent 300 million at West Ham, you'd probably have you scrambling for your calculators. That's if you haven't broken your phone by throwing vegetables at it when I said it's David Moyes' masterpiece. That's not including this season. David Moyes' team is right now, and he is being backed by the board. I said numerous times throughout this transfer window, back him or sack him. This halfway house of not quite getting the deals that he wanted over the line. It's been no secret that he wanted McTominay and Maguire and Ward-Prowse and so on and so forth. That is no secret at all. But I felt that the club were just stopping shy. And I wondered what was going on. Were they trying to force him out? And, well, you know what? All that stuff. I've said numerous occasions, I've never been a particular lover of conspiracy theory, because ultimately it turns out not to be true. And the most simple explanation is the one, and that's that David Moyes was actually going to be retained all the way along, and it looks that way, doesn't it? That's why he's being backed. There's no way that the club would go and buy Harry Maguire and James Ward-Prowse and start going out after some of these other targets if they weren't going to back David Moyes. So I think now we're going to see, this will be the 3rd season in a row, in fact, that he's spent 30-odd million on a centre-back. He's never been able to do anything like that before. I mean, at Man United, he just didn't get long enough to do it. I do wonder if he'd have transformed Man United. The old story goes that he made Vidic, that's the one, Vlasic. No, he just got rid of him. And Rio Ferdinand sit down and watch videos of Phil Jagielka to show them how to defend. One of the first things he did, possibly the first signing, was to sign Fellaini from Everton. Maybe had he been given 3 or 4 years at Manchester United, you would have seen ultimately the team he was looking to build. But I think it's now. Now is the best point in David Moyes' career. Now we will finally see if David Moyes' system works, really, because he can have no complaints after this. I do think we are going to buy another attacker, because otherwise his masterpiece isn't completed. He has to buy the attacker for us to transition up the football pitch properly. But I think if he does that, and I think we will, because he wouldn't have sanctioned the deal for Scamacca to leave, then I think David Moyes gets his way. I think in Scamacca leaving, David Moyes has got his way. David Moyes did not sign that player. You will not convince me otherwise. I often wondered why he would sign someone so completely unsuited to his style. The simple answer, again, without any conspiracy in there, is that he didn't. It was somebody else. Actually, if you look at it, I think he wanted Darwin Núñez, didn't get him. You look at Darwin Núñez, again, whether you like him or whether you don't like him, he was suited to David Moyes' style. You look at Armando Broja, he was suited to David Moyes' style. Scamacca very, very different to those two players. So I don't think he was. So I think it's another victory for David Moyes getting Scamacca out of there. And I just wonder if the club have gone, OK, finally we will back you wholeheartedly. And I wonder if that's what's happening now. Now, it may well be that actually David Moyes' plan, if fully backed, maybe it yields absolute success. We don't know. We're going to see. If he gets Maguire in, if he gets James Ward-Prowse in, and I'm not even going to talk about Paqueta at this point because we just don't know. And he gets the team playing in the system that he wants. Maybe we'll just be so bloody horrendous to play against. Maybe we become just the worst kind of team, almost like Wimbledon under Bobby Gould. Remember that? Or like Tony Poulis's Stoke team. Not that Stoke went and achieved anything. Actually, Wimbledon did, to be fair. They went and won the FA Cup, of course. But I do wonder if we become that team. And if that's what David Moyes wants to play football like, we just become a massive pain in the arse to everybody. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I'm not really here to overly discuss, but, we'll be able to see that. We'll have the proof of the pudding. Well, it won't come against Bournemouth. I guess the proof of the pudding will be after the first game in September, whatever that may be. After that international break, David Moyes will have some time on the training pitch. The transfer window will be over. All his signings will be in. And we will get to see his vision. It's his vision. It's not just his masterpiece. It's his vision. When he came into West Ham, he said he wanted to build, and I am paraphrasing here, some of the words might be incorrect, but the heart of what I'm saying is correct. He basically alluded to the fact that he was going to build a young, vibrant team. That's pretty much what he suggested. He may have meant it, by the way. He may have actually meant that. That actually what I'm going to do now is I'm going to build a young team. Well, he hasn't really. And I just wonder if pragmatism's taken over. If actually he's thought, you know what, forget this young team thing. What I actually want is hardened, chiselled, English-based players with Premier League experience. I mean, look, whether you like Ward-Prowse or you dislike Harry Maguire or, any combination of the above, they are still proven Premier League players, and both of them are England internationals, actually. So maybe that's just what he wanted. Maybe, forget all this stuff. We were never in a position where you hear that? I'll say no. Anyway, don't worry about it. Don't worry. That's someone mowing their lawn. There's someone chopping a tree. I mean, it's not my bloody tree. Anyway, someone's doing something out there. You have to excuse me. I was a little bit distracted then. I think, when you're looking at it, I never thought he was in for players. Some of them, the tricky younger players that we might have been interested in. Were we ever really interested in Alex Scott? No, didn't think so at the time. Max Aarons would have been nice, but no, don't think so. Maybe get proven wrong on both of those. Now you see, and what you're going to get now is your hardened, seasoned players, and we're just going to find out what happens now with David Moyes. What he can't do, he cannot fail now. But we are a little bit screwed, I think, in terms of we buy these players. It's very hard after doing this to go and get a young progressive manager to come in. Not to come in and arrive at West Ham, because I think West Ham pay big wages and we can attract managers, but what they would have to work with probably is not great. I do also wonder if maybe these older players probably suit Mark Noble in his role. He's probably thinking, well, hold on a second, now there is possibly a path to the first team for these younger players. Whereas, looking at Maguire and looking at Ward-Prowse, they're not going to be around forever, are they? That being said, talk about Ward-Prowse. There's no reason why Ward-Prowse can't be a really good player for West Ham in the next 5 years. No reason whatsoever at all. It is going to be interesting, though, to see what happens here. It really is. And I just think he's been backed now. I think David Moyes has been totally backed. And he can have no complaints at all. At all. He's been able to build his team. He's been able to spend money like he's never spent in his career. And he's been able to build his own coaching team. Now, look, the fact that some of them may have left, I don't really think is anybody's fault at the club, by and large. This would be David Moyes's. It's up to David Moyes which coaches he brings in, And if they've departed and they've left, then, you know, that's up to him. I'd be really interested to see what he's going to do in all of this. But I guess we just have to wait and see now. We have to wait and see. It's like I said in yesterday's video, if these players sign, you know, I will welcome them to West Ham. I really will. What I'm not going to do is have a player come into West Ham and start slagging them off before they've kicked a ball. No, you know, before we've signed, I'm not going to say I might prefer this player or that player. But once they sign, that's it. It's done. When they pull on that shirt, you know, I'm a fan and I'll support them certainly. And you know what, good on them. You know, I hope it works. And there's certain things that you worry about. I quite was looking forward to seeing the development of Nathan Gerd. I don't know what happens with him now. I would imagine he's not in the team anymore if Maguire's in the team. That being said, Kurt Zouma, we've recently just did our player ratings, our player of the year, over on Patreon. And by the way, if you want to go and check out our Patreon, the link is in the description below. The reason I'm able to, particularly over the last few days, is be here every day uploading as the news breaks is, well, because of our patrons, because of our kind sponsors, because you lot kindly watch the adverts as well. There's a whole number of reasons why we're able to do it. But as part of our Patreon, which is basically our third Hammers Chat channel, we do a player ratings, and we just finished the player of the season. And it was really evident reading through it all and seeing how many games each player played. And Zouma does not play many games at all. So, you know what? Maybe it's right having the additional centre-back there. You know, it's no point pretending that a pairing of Nathan Gerd and Zouma is going to play all season together. They just won't. They just won't. Anyway, it's just going to be interesting. I think it's really, really interesting. It's a little case of trying to almost, you know, sort of pick yourself up a little bit now, I think, for me, on this one. And, you know, try and start looking forward to the season. I think the annoying thing with all this is, even if it had just been a few days quicker, we'd have got to have seen these players, they would have been settled. And, you know, we get them before the Bournemouth game. If we don't win the Bournemouth game now, then I just think the club look bloody silly, really. Bearing in mind, there's no surprise here. But everyone, there's not, whether you talk about Alvarez, whether you talk about Prowse, or whether you talk about Maguire or anyone else, these names were all out there a month ago, at the very least. There's no reason for them not to be signed before the Bournemouth game. I think it's pretty crappy, actually. And then you get this situation. Do you know what? I'm not going to talk about Ward-Prowse because, you know what, by the time this video goes up, anything could have happened. You never know. He gets signed and he's registered in time for the, registered in time for the Bournemouth game, and it's, you know, it doesn't really matter, mate. You know what I mean? It doesn't make my point valid then. So anyway, I'll leave it till there. I'm waffling now. I'll finish up now. I will be back later on. I guarantee you I'll be back later on with some West Ham transfer news.